half-point favorite. 5 p.m. tip-off tomorrow on NBC. Tonight at 6, it's your Friday night sports fix. Out of bounds in prime time. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough for 60 minutes of sports chatter with some black folks flavor. You can hang out with us on the KBLA YouTube channel or hit us up at 1-800-920-1580. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
In a world full of noise, one station keeps it real. KBLA Talk 1580, where the conversation goes deeper, the voices sound like yours, and the issues that matter most to our community take center stage. Progressive, powerful, unapologetically us. Whether you're driving through the city or tuning in from your home or office, join the public square. KBLA Talk 1580, your home for talk that enlightens, encourages, and empowers. Listen live on our free KBLA 1580 app, on our website at KBLA1580.com, or on your radio dial at 1580 AM.
Unapologetically progressive.
Welcome to the Black Pack here on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm your host, Adrianne Shropshire, hoping that you are having a good Friday as we close out the week. Andy is trying to ease us into our jam-packed show with some jazz. I know that that's probably new for folks. They're like, Miles Davis, but then definitely people are like, where is Ice Cube? Adrian, where is Ice Cube? We really do have a jam-packed show for folks. We're going to be 2 weeks ago. I was like, we're going to do the show next week and we're going to talk about the elections here in California. And then I got called down to Mississippi to join thousands of people that were mobilizing from across the state to push back against these right-wing efforts to erase black political representation. And so we weren't able to do that. So today, later on in the show, we're going to talk about a couple of things. One, we're going to be joined by Dr. Shakari Byers once again from the polling firm Eviderus. We're going to talk about what the polling says in the final days of this campaign. We are days away from the last day to vote. But we're also going to talk about one of the ballot measures, Measure ER, a temporary tax that offsets the Trump administration's gutting of our healthcare system. And so we're going to be joined by West LA College professor of African American Studies and Measure ER coalition member Christian Green. We're also going to be joined by Dr. Jerry Abraham with the Kedron Community Health Center about the potential impacts of these Trump cuts, but also how Measure ER could make a difference. But first, we've been talking a lot about the Supreme Court's decision a couple of weeks ago that really opened the floodgates to southern states redrawing their congressional districts to eliminate black districts, and as a result, eliminating black representation from Congress. That we saw just today, in fact, Louisiana passed their map and sent it on to the governor, which will eliminate one of two black congressional districts in the state of Louisiana. And so in response to that, organizations and really everyday people, that's what we saw in Mississippi last week, everyday people across the South have been responding by mobilizing in an effort to push back, right, against this political erasure. And one of those organizations is the NAACP that launched recently a campaign called Out of Bounds, which is an effort that calls on black athletes, families, communities, alumni, and fans to withhold their talent and or support from public universities in states that are attempting to erase the voting rights of Black communities. And so joining us now is Trevon Williams, the Senior Vice President of Marketing and Communications at the NAACP. Welcome, Trevon. Thank you so much for joining. I know that you all are all over sort of moving this campaign and explaining to folks why it's so important.
Absolutely, Adrian. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk more about it.
So tell us, describe, I mean, this is obviously in response, the campaign is in response to what we're seeing in terms of Republican legislatures across the South breaking up Black political districts and erasing representation. So again, Louisiana passed their map today, sent it on to the governor. It will, in fact, get rid of one Black member of Congress, of which there were only 2 from Louisiana. So talk a little bit about, there really is kind of this like powerful message that you all are putting out there, which is essentially profiting off of Black athletes while suppressing Black people's votes is out of bounds, right? So talk a little bit about kind of how you all arrived at the campaign, what sparked it, and what folks need to know about it.
Certainly, and I think your framing is spot on. I mean, we recognize that across the South, Black athletes have helped build some of the most profitable college athletic programs in America. These programs generate hundreds of millions of dollars for many of the southern states, and really keeps many of us enthused and enjoying and entertained all throughout our weekends, et cetera. And at the same time, as you just made mention to and alluded to, several of these southern states are moving to limit, reduce, and weaken and erase Black voting representation after the Supreme Court decision that just came down a few weeks ago. I mean, we're literally, I think, just a month away from that decision, and It seems like rapid fire, like dominoes just fell into place all across the South. And so we have to use every mechanism available within our community in order to right-size and resist what's taking place. And our Black talent and our Black athletes, the most sought-after Black athletes in both basketball and football, are desired by many of these southern states and many of the top-tier schools in many cases. So what we're effectively saying to many of our Black athletes all across the nation, as they're making their decisions about where they're going to commit in the future, choose wisely. You can leverage your amazing ability and talent and really help to right-size these things, because we know the one thing that the Southern people say they love more than God is football in many cases. So we're going to prove it now. We're going to prove out you're going to make a sacrifice to God. You're going to have to make a sacrifice and tell these elected officials to stop turning back these maps and secretly trying to dilute the Black vote. So that's what Out of Bounds is all about. It's about empowering Black athletes from all across this country to know that before you make a decision about going to an Alabama or Georgia or Florida or Florida State, make a decision about what's going to be the best representation for you in the long haul. We're not telling anyone to go away from these D1 opportunities, and that's why we're specifically targeting the top elite talent. We're talking about your McDonald's All-Americans. We're talking about your Under Armour All-Americans within football. We're going after those individuals. Why? Because many of those individuals have 20 to 40 offers each time they're going through their recruitment cycle, 20 to 40. Yeah. So we're not talking about one scenario here. We're talking about multiple. And we believe that we apply the necessary pressure. We'll put our nation back on the alert that we are going to fight back in any way, shape, or form.
So I want to, when we come forward, I actually want to talk to you about, because I've heard lots of folks intentionally in some ways misconstruing what you all are asking. Right. What you're asking of athletes, what you're asking of alumni. And so I want to talk a little bit about what specifically, I know you just laid it out, right? Like the top tier athletes have many choices and they can use their power to make a choice and send a message. But lots of folks are intentionally misunderstanding what you all are calling on.
You're being kind.
We're gonna name some names when we come forward. But I want to give you an opportunity to talk about, because it isn't just about asking the athletes to make a sacrifice. It's actually more than that. So this is a critical time to be having this conversation. When we come forward, more with Trevon Williams about the NAACP's Out of Bounds campaign.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
Javier Becerra isn't new to the fight for progress. In Congress, he helped write and pass Obamacare. As Attorney General, he sued Trump over 120 times and won. As Secretary of Health, Becerra took on special interests and lowered drug costs. Endorsed by Planned Parenthood and nurses, Javier Becerra is the fighter we need and the leader we can trust to tackle California's affordability crisis, build more affordable housing, and stop Trump when he violates our civil rights. Ad paid for by Becerra for Governor 2026.
Do you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS like Mark?
I've been doing home remodeling for 30 plus years, but the economy crashed. I wound up losing my home, losing my job, and on top of that, owing the IRS a ton of money. I owed the IRS $114,000. It really, truly was the worst part of my life.
Then Mark found tax relief advocates.
On news radio, I heard about TRA, and I thought, what's the worst that could happen? So I picked up the phone and I called them. When it was all said and done, TRA settled my $114,000 debt for $100, and I'm telling you, I was ecstatic. Could not believe it. Would recommend TRA to anyone.
If you owe 10 or even hundreds of thousands of dollars to the IRS, don't lose hope. Do what Mark did and call TRA for a consultation.
But TRA did. They gave me a second chance, and I'm forever grateful.
Visit TRA.com or call 800-575-8935. 800-575-8935. That's 800-575-8935.
Let's celebrate.
Y'all did it!
Loving each other, needing each other.
Hey, Los Angeles, KBLA Talk 1580 is turning 5, and we're celebrating in a big way.
Oh my God!
Join us Friday, June 19th, Juneteenth, 4 to 7 p.m. at the Beehive for our 5th anniversary bash and Juneteenth celebration. We're talking surprise celebrity guests, a special presentation, and a major announcement you will not want to miss.
I can't wait to hear it.
Plus, live music, dancing, games, and enough food and drink to keep the party going.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Of course, you're welcome to bring your own picnic basket, blanket, and lawn chair. And the best part, it's completely free. But here's the thing. You've got to sign up in advance. Space is limited, so don't wait. Head to KBLA1580.com right now and lock in your spot. Friday, June 19th, The Beehive, KBLA Talk 1580. 5 years strong, and we're just getting started.
Happy anniversary, KBLA! Yeah, man! You don't talk to me like that. Don't talk to your mommy like that.
Unlike your mama, we can handle your black talk on the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire.
You are listening to The Black Pack, and we are continuing our conversation with Trevon Williams, the Senior Vice President for Marketing and Communications at the NAACP, about their new Out of Bounds campaign. So, Trevon, before the break, I was asking about, there's lots of people that are misconstruing, right, what it is that the NAACP is calling on. I've heard people say things like, oh, you can't put that, you're just putting pressure on these kids, and they're 18, 19, 17, 18, 19 years old. You can't put the kind of pressure on them. Why aren't you guys asking the alumni to do something? Why aren't you asking, professional athletes to do something, right? And so talk a little bit about what is being called because it is beyond just saying to 17-year-olds, like, don't go to school. Like, that is not what the campaign is calling on anyone to do.
100%. And I appreciate you framing that way, because the NAACP is in no way, shape, or form telling these sought-after athletes to just not go to school. We would never do anything like that. We are the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and we know that education is an essential part of moving our community forward. What we're effectively asking is for those athletes who are being sought after within those 8 states and those 13 targeted schools, those schools that we are targeting are schools that are bringing in a revenue of over $100 million every year. We're simply telling a child that if you have those type of talents and you're being sought after by a Georgia and a UCLA, give UCLA a particular set of considerations in this equation. Why? Because we know that what's going on in Georgia will not. They may put a statue for you outside, but they might not let you vote on inside the arena that thereafter, right?
Right.
So we're asking our students to choose wisely. But the other part that and I want to make sure we drive this point home as well, because President Johnson, we had an outstanding all units call with many of our units from all across the country just last night. Our intention is not to speak to 17 and 18-year-old students. We want to talk to families. We want to talk to families. I have an 18-year-old cousin that's graduated from college right now. I am a proud Hampton man. I gave him every bit of the Hampton muster I could. At the end of the day, him, my sister, and my brother-in-law, they sat down and they made a decision, and he decided he was going to go to Towson University. They have to make a decision as a family that's in the best interest. And so what we're calling for is to empower our communities, our families, with the most information. Yeah. As President Johnson has said on numerous occasions, if you have 10 factors that's going into your college decision, make this the 11th factor into whether or not representation is being reflected within your local community. That's what we're calling for. But the other side, to your point, Adrian, with regards to the alumni, we're not asking athletes alone, but we know that our money talks more than anything else. We know that, and it's been proven to us time and time again, that economics is what matters in this equation. Yep. So while we're asking athletes to make those informed decisions, well, we're also telling alumni and fans and those who are in support to avoid supporting these schools and avoid supporting them with buying merchandise, with buying tickets, by going to games. But watch this. Reinvest those funds in the HBCUs, which are also all throughout the South itself. So if you're not going to give it to Alabama, give it to an Alabama A&M. If you're not going to give it to, a Florida, give it to a Bethune-Cookman or a Florida A&M. We are being particular about what we're calling for because we want to empower our community. So it's not just athletes, it's alumni, it's fans, it's families, and those who support the NAACP.
That's right. And I think that's, this is not, folks can make a choice, as you said, to spend money on tickets or not. And there is a way in which, again, to your point, and we know this from our history of protest, right, that that money speaks, right? And so we're looking at, and again, these are state institutions, right, who exist in states where the state government is trying to reduce the political power of black people. And not just, we certainly have the attempts to reduce voting rights. We understand the sort of voter suppression laws that have, ballooned, right, across the South to sort of make it harder for black folks to vote. And now we have this new dimension, which is essentially saying, we don't want y'all in Congress either. We don't want you in elected office. And so we're going to break up your districts, right? We're going to break up your grandmama's district, right, to make sure that she's unable to pick the person who she wants to represent her. And so I feel like that, I listen to people when I said that lots of people are misconstruing. They're also not providing the context for why we're even having this conversation right now. And it's also assuming, infantilizing 18-year-olds, right? This idea that young people can't stand up for themselves, right? I've heard so many people say it's too much to put on a 17 or 18-year-old. Well, 17 and 18-year-olds were in the streets in Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia during the Civil Rights Movement, and doing everything that needed to be done, putting their lives literally on the line. And so this idea that 17, 18-year-olds, don't know enough, aren't courageous enough, right, to actually take a stand is actually kind of insulting to those athletes as well.
And I would add, for those who are saying young people don't belong in the streets, Cortland Cox from SNCC would like to have a conversation with you. There are a myriad of individuals. These movements have largely been read and led by brave young people who are willing to be a part of the boycott, willing to be a part of the sit-ins, willing to withdraw their services from different capacities. Right. So let's not be naive in this moment and then pretend like we are, turning over a new rock here. These are things that we have known, and now we know that there is leverage associated with regards to NIL and money, and that's why we're being very meticulous about going after sought-after athletes so that you are not forfeiting any of those things that you have the ability to go after itself. We know how difficult it is. Our economy is in the absolute right now.
Right.
But we can do this and leverage it appropriately if we are disciplined and we do this with a cadence across the entire community.
And so talk a little bit about beyond the Out of Bounds campaign. So I was down, I saw you down in Jackson last week, where it's literally thousands of people came out from across the state. It was really inspirational and moving, right, to see folks who showed up on a Wednesday at the state capitol, thousands, to say this is not going down like this, right? To say we're not going to remain silent, either while we're in this Capitol together or when we go back to our towns and cities. Talk a little bit, and a big part of that was a coalitional effort in Mississippi, 40 organizations who helped to bring folks together. But it was also a big part of the work of the state conference, the NAACP state conference in Mississippi, and the NAACP. Talk about what else in the NAACP is doing right now to make sure that people are informed about what's happening, engaged, and understand that they have an opportunity to play a role in what is emerging as our new movement.
Well, I appreciate what you just brought up as well, because Mississippi is one of those moments where you recognize that we can actually do this. There's people with the same mindset that I have a one singular focus, and that is advancing our community. And you saw it in real time in Mississippi. It was raining, it was cold, and the place was absolutely packed to the thousands from all across. Watch this. Not just all across the counties of Mississippi, all across the country. You had people from Tennessee and Alabama. I flew in from Washington, D.C., and that's what we need to resonate with our communities itself, is that no one's in this by themselves. This is our fight collectively. What you're going to be seeing from the NAACP in full bore is sort of a cadence surrounding exactly what you just saw in Mississippi. We are working tirelessly with many of our southern states in real time to resist as much as possible while we're building up the mobilization similar to what you saw in Mississippi at the other states themselves. Our all-units call last night was to inform many of our members from all across the NAACP as to what our legal strategy is, talking around some of the mobilization efforts that are taking place as well, and to also bring extreme clarity to what it is that we are calling for so that we can amplify appropriately within our own community. There are people that are going to hear this message, and it will resonate more from their local pastor or their local teacher in a way that it won't resonate coming from me. I want to get it into their hands so that they can share the message with a trusted voice. And that's what this is really about, making sure trusted voices within our communities are able to mobilize, strategize, and then share the stories about the wins, because I think that's as vital as anything else in this moment. There are wins happening all across the nation, and we need to amplify them as much as possible.
Yeah, that's an important point, because I think that sometimes in the midst of the kind of overwhelmment, right, folks, it's hard to see, right, that things are actually happening, right? Not only are there wins, are there court decisions. I appreciate you lifting up the fact that you all are fighting legal battles, right? There's litigation across the southern states, across the country, quite frankly, because I also hesitate to suggest that this is just a southern problem. Right. We know that, there are, in Missouri, we know that, the Kansas City seat will be potentially lost. Right. We know that in Indiana, the Indianapolis seat could be potentially lost. Absolutely. And so people should not think that this is just about the South. But, the South is where people like to play games.
They like to test it out.
Right.
Yeah.
That's where they like to test it out. And so I appreciate you talking about the different things. There's litigation. There's mobilization, right? There's this campaign to say you don't have to give your talent, right, to places that who don't want your grandmama to vote, right? Like that's an important thing. One of the things, just on the Out of Bounds campaign one more time, one of the things that I heard President Derek Johnson, who's the president of the NAACP, say is that we don't believe in sharecropping in relationship to this campaign. We don't believe in sharecropping, and we're not going to suggest that our children go and sharecrop, right? Like this country has a long history of exploiting our children for profit, right? And I think that when we think about this moment that we're in, where again, like we are being asked to be second-class citizens again, right? We're being told you do not you are not allowed to choose your representatives, that it starts to, like I always say, like, this stuff is a little too on the nose. You know what I mean? Like, you're not even trying, right? And so this idea that there are those who think that we would allow our children to be exploited for profit, as this country has done for centuries, and that nothing will happen. I think that the work that you all are doing, both in the mobilization and the litigation and all the other kind of strategies that you all are employing, should be a message. And so I wonder how folks are responding. Like, what are you getting back from folks in the SEC, right? Like, what are you hearing from folks on the ground in these states about the impact of just this really kind of short I mean, it hasn't been y'all just started this campaign, but what are folks feeling right now?
The tables are shaking, and I think people need to understand that when your community, it's not just NAACP, but when our community speaks out, when we recognize the leverage and the power that our collective community has, things start to move. There are ongoing conversations that are taking place, both from an elected official standpoint, boosters, corporations, etc., are reaching out to say, we need to get ahead of this. I think there's been even now, some announcements with regards to backup crisis management and different things of that sort. Good. That means we got somebody's attention.
And let me stop you there. I'm gonna please. I want you to come back to the point you were making. But the thing that you're saying is that there was an announcement that the SEC hired a crisis manager who just happens to be a black man to come and deal, help them figure out what to do about this campaign. Sorry, I want to just make it plain what you were talking about.
No, Adrian, how convenient. How convenient, right?
Right.
When these sort of maneuvers are happening, that means that we've gotten someone's attention. We haven't even begun to scratch the surface of what your NAACP and our community as a whole is able to do. We are having ongoing conversations with, and this is another one of those things I want to make sure we're clarifying as well. We did not wake up one day and decide that we were going to rock headlines with announcing a statement. Our president and our executive leadership has been in constant communication with pro athletes, with former athletes, with representatives of student athletes themselves. We did not wake up. This is always chess, never checkers with us. And so it's naive to think that we're not having these ongoing conversations. We can't reveal all our hands because why would we?
Right.
But we need to make sure that our community understands that they can trust your NAACP because we're moving meticulously around what's in the best interest of our entire community in this moment. So we got a whole lot of feedback. There's a whole lot of conversations that are ongoing. There's a whole lot of support from people who are trying to figure out how they can help us push this across the finish line because they know that what's happening across the South is going to make its way right into the North. It's only a matter of time. If it's happening to your neighbor, that means it's in your neighborhood, and it's only a matter of time at this point. And so we have to leverage these moments as much as possible, but we've been very, very pleased with the amount of conversation. Think about this.
Yeah.
My father drives big rig trucks for a living, and him calling me from somewhere in the middle of America, driving a big rig, asking me about this campaign means that we're reaching into capacity in places that we haven't had the ability to do. There are people who are only sports fans who know exactly what's going on with regards to redistricting, and they didn't know about that a week ago because of these efforts. And that's just the announcement, Adrian. Imagine when we actually start mobilizing the way we're possible.
Yeah. All right. Trevon Williams, the Senior VP of Marketing and Communications at the NAACP. We're going to keep track with y'all just to see how this is going over time, and appreciate, of course, all the work that the association does at the national level and state conferences and the branches across the country. Thanks for coming on and explaining this. When we come forward, we are going to turn our attention back home and talk with Professor Christian Green about one of the measures, the ballot measures on your ballot, Measure ER. Stay with us. We have a lot to talk about.
More of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson says he's pleased after meeting with Pope Leo XIV in Vatican City.
I was able to say that, Chicago is strong.
Johnson says the Pope's first question was, how's Chicago? The mayor also invited him to hold Mass in Grant Park next year while the two discuss slavery, immigration, war, and baseball. The Department of Homeland Security is threatening to pull federal customs officers from airports in sanctuary cities, including LAX. Secretary Markwayne Mullin says plans are being drawn up, but the idea is facing pushback. Black Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass says she doubts DHS will follow through. And Louisiana's new GOP favorite congressional map is heading to the governor's desk. Lawmakers passed the redrawn map after the Supreme Court voided the previous one. The new map eliminates one of the state's black majority congressional districts. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Still hiding your legs because of spider or varicose veins? West Medical offers minimally invasive vein treatments that require little downtime. Most PPO insurance plans cover treatment and they verify your benefits free. Call 1-800-WEST-MED today for your free consultation.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers are back in action tonight after a day off Thursday. They start a 3-game homestand tonight against Philadelphia. The Dodgers, 16 games over 500, have won 5 straight and are 12-2 since May 12th. They lead Arizona by 4.5 games in the NL West. For the first time since 2018, the NBA Western Conference Finals will have a Game 7. The San Antonio Spurs and Oklahoma City Thunder meet up tomorrow in OKC. The winner moves on to face the New York Knicks in the NBA Finals. At the moment, OKC is a 3.5-point favorite. 5 p.m. tip-off tomorrow on NBC. Tonight at 6, it's your Friday night sports fix. Out of bounds in prime time. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough for 60 minutes of sports chatter with some black folks flavor. You can hang out with us on the KBLA YouTube channel or hit us up at 1-800-920-1580. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
In a world full of noise, one station keeps it real. KBLA Talk 1580, where the conversation goes deeper, the voices sound like yours, and the issues that matter most to our community take center stage. Progressive, powerful, unapologetically us. Whether you're driving through the city or tuning in from your home or office, join the public square. KBLA Talk 1580, your home for talk that enlightens, encourages, and empowers. Listen live on our free KBLA 1580 app, on our website at KBLA1580.com, or on your radio dial at 1580 AM.
Unapologetically progressive.
Javier Becerra isn't new to the fight for progress. In Congress, he helped write and pass Obamacare. As Attorney General, he sued Trump over 120 times and won. As Secretary of Health, Becerra took on special interests and lowered drug costs. Endorsed by Planned Parenthood and nurses, Javier Becerra is the fighter we need and the leader we can trust to tackle California's affordability crisis, build more affordable housing, and stop Trump when he violates our civil rights. Ad paid for by Becerra for Governor 2026.
My name is Cynthia Mitchell. I've been an emergency room nurse in Los Angeles County for 25 years. I've been there through every fire season, every outbreak, every earthquake. Every time Los Angeles needed us, the doctors and nurses of Los Angeles County showed up. And right now, I'm seeing another disaster coming. Trump's cuts to Los Angeles County's healthcare system are a public health crisis in the making. Medi-Cal, public hospitals, disaster preparedness are all at risk, but we can stop it. Measure ER fights back against these cuts. For a half a penny, we keep emergency rooms open, care within reach for working families, and doctors and nurses serving the communities we love. When you vote yes on Measure ER, you're not just voting for healthcare, you're voting for LA. Vote yes on Measure ER by June 2nd.
Ad paid for by Yes on ER, Restore Healthcare for Angelinos, sponsored by St. John's Community Health and Health Justice Action Fund. Ad committee top funder, St. John's Community Health.
Let's be real. For too long, too many of our students have sat in overcrowded classrooms in underfunded public schools.
But as head of the San Diego School Board, Richard Barrera changed that.
Under Barrera's leadership, student literacy rose from the state average all the way to #1 among major urban school districts. Barrera led the way for smaller classrooms and for teachers to be paid what they're worth.
Barrera funded more counselors and mental health services, and community schools that teach real-world skills for future jobs.
A community organizer who became an education leader to fight for our kids. The only candidate for State Superintendent of Public Instruction.
Backed by the 310,000 classroom educators of the California Teachers Association. Vote Democrat Richard Barrera for state superintendent.
Ad paid for by California Teachers Association Independent Expenditure Committee, not authorized by a candidate or committee controlled by a candidate.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to the Black Pack, and, we talk all the time about the midterms happening across the country. I always say the midterms aren't coming in November. They are here already. And I say that sometimes without actually thinking about us as voters in California, because we talk a lot about what's happening around the country. And as I looked at my ballot laid across my dining room table before I left to come down to the station, I thought, we are really down to the wire here. We are 4 days out from the final day to vote, which is June 2nd. And if folks are like me and wait until the last minute, please fill out your ballot and get it in, and also drop it off either at a drop box or at a voting center to make sure your vote gets counted. But we're here. We're in the final days. And I think that some of the reason why folks are taking a little longer. One, it's a long ballot. And two, there are ballot measures on the ballot that I know that is one of the things that folks often struggle with, to understand what those ballot measures are. So I wanted to take a moment during this show to talk about Measure ER specifically. And I'm really happy to be joined right now by Christian Green, who is a West LA College professor of African American Studies, a community organizer, and a Measure ER coalition member. So Christian, welcome first of all, and thank you so much for taking time out to come on and talk to us about this important ballot measure.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, and congrats on celebrating 5 years of keeping it real.
So there are a couple of things, right? We're obviously in the home stretch, right, of this election. We, are always trying to make sure that people, have as much information as they can. Measure ER feels critically important for people to be aware of and understand it, right? It's a 0.5-cent sales tax it's temporary, right, that would last for 5 years, and essentially is an effort to offset the cuts that the Trump administration have made to healthcare. But talk a little bit more about what it is and why this measure, why Measure ER, what it will mean, right, for folks here in LA County.
Absolutely. I want to say thank you so much for, allowing us some time to talk about it. If I could just give a little context of who I am.
Please.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm someone deeply rooted in both the Antelope Valley and LA County. My work sits at the intersection of Black wellness, health equity, LGBTQ youth, and foster youth advocacy, racial justice, public policy. But I really want to talk about my lived experience. And I think I want to allow folks to understand that, to those that were born into instability like myself, my mother was incarcerated when she had me, raised through family and community support. I experienced systems up close and understand, what happens when safety nets fail. And I understand that healthcare is personal for me. I know what it means to need consistent care, medication, prevention, and providers you trust. And why Measure ER matters. Measure ER is about protecting healthcare infrastructure before it collapses further. We are already seeing devastating federal cuts to healthcare, something that you mentioned. But I want us to look at that ER. We are living in emergency times. The ER, the emergency room. We're living.
Right.
We have 4 days left to figure that out.
Everywhere is an emergency room. Yes.
Hello, absolutely. And, since the federal changes to Medicaid and Medicare funding, over 200,000 LA County residents have already lost full scope of Medi-Cal coverage. So this affects working families, our seniors, our youth and young adults, our foster youth, our LGBTQ communities, and Black communities disproportionately. So this is not just about politics for me, but this is about whether people can see a doctor before a crisis becomes even an emergency, And so when we look at Black health disparities, it hits us a little harder. Black residents have already experienced higher rates of hypertension, chronic illness in LA County. Our Black children rely heavily on Medi-Cal at disproportionately high rate. Black Californians have the shortest life expectancy in the state. So as a Black man, as someone who works in Black communities every day, and as someone that's living with HIV, I understand what prevention means. From missing appointments, losing medication access, not being able to afford care. And those become, life and death very quickly, to be truthful. And I'll shut up.
Well, no, that was great. I appreciate that, because I think that sometimes we see the ballot measures, right, and it's all kind of academic, right? We read the summary, right, in our guide, right? We read the ballot language in our guide, and sometimes it's hard to make that direct connection, right? Even if we are going to be impacted, right, by and everybody, right, will be impacted in this case when we think about the kinds of cuts that we saw at the federal level. That I think something to the tune of LA County will lose something like $700 million because of the cuts that the congressional Republicans decided that that we all didn't need health care and that their friends needed tax breaks, right? And so and we're all living and suffering under that right now. So that from people's premiums going up, right, to people losing their health care. So no, I appreciate you bringing that sort of perspective of this is real and it affects real people, and here are the kinds of things that people are gonna be experiencing. I do want to talk a little bit about the idea of the measure that it offsets the cuts, right? And so I think that there's estimates that that temporary half-cent tax that we would pay could actually bring in $1 billion a year to help sustain LA County's healthcare system, and that's not that. I mean that is a big deal when you're talking about a system that is overburdened right now.
Absolutely. And when we think about taxes, I also want us to think about how people are already struggling with inflation. And, but healthcare collapse costs even more. Emergency room care is more expensive than prevention. I used to work at Blue Shield, and I've seen those ER bills. I've seen those ER bills, and the measure is temporary. And I want us to think about how it's temporary through 2031. And it exempts groceries, prescription medication, EBT purchases. So, 50 cents on $100 to protect health care is cheaper than a broken healthcare system. You know what I'm saying? With the more ER visits, there will be higher public costs. Individuals will take on more medical debt, further exacerbating the cost of living crisis. And this is kind of exactly why Yes on ER supporting Measure ER is to prevent healthcare costs from going up for every Angelino, and going to those, I think we sometimes forget about Antelope Valley, Lancaster, Palmdale, and I've been out there since 98. I've done a lot of work out there. And so when we look at LA County, I also want us to do a little bit of focus on Lancaster, Palmdale, Lake LA, and how we look at, because I've worked with transitional age youth out there, foster youth, unhoused young adults, families struggling with instability. I've seen young people choose between food, transportation, and healthcare. Many young people struggle with the access basic medical appointments because of transportation and provider shortages that exist in the AV. So I just want us to think about and really think about how this half a cent is going to help us in the longevity wise.
Yeah. That's really important. Thank you. Because if we're expanding, we forget sometimes, we get myopic and think that LA County is, just LA City, and it is not.
Absolutely.
And there are people across the county, who could benefit from this. Okay, so when we come forward, we're going to continue this conversation with Professor Christian Green. I want to ask you about your students, how you're explaining this to young people, how this measure to young people, and also like the work that you do to get young people engaged and involved. So when we come forward, we'll get into that part of the conversation. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
Let me tell you something about Los Angeles. This city doesn't have small problems, so it damn sure doesn't need small, weak leadership. That's why I support Karen Bass. She walked into a system that was slow, broken, and reluctant to change. She cut through red tape and started moving people off the streets into housing. She created the Office of Community Safety to make our neighborhood safer, supported wage increases for many underpaid workers, expanded contract opportunities for small minority business, and signed an executive order to give formerly incarcerated people a second chance. Karen Bass is about real change. I'm Samuel L. Jackson, and I've seen a lot of people talk tough. Karen Bass is tough. That's why I'm voting for Karen Bass, and you should too. So vote today. You received your ballot in the mail by now. You don't even have to go to the polls. Just fill out your ballot and hand it to your postal worker. No stamp needed.
Paid for by re-elect Karen Bass for Mayor 2026, 445 South Figueroa Street, Suite 2400, Los Angeles, California 90071. Funding details at ethics.lacity.gov.
Zach Sokoloff is the only Democrat running for city controller. He is a lifelong Democrat and is endorsed by the California Democratic Party and LA County Democratic Party. Zach taught at Jordan High School in Watts and created a jobs training program to build career pathways for young people. He's fought for equity and justice and will continue that fight as city controller. Vote Democrat. Vote Zach Sokoloff for LA City Controller by June 2nd. Paid for by Zach Sokoloff for Controller 2026. Additional info available at ethics.lacity.gov. Going to a World Cup match in LA this summer? Ditch the parking stress and ride Metro. With direct service from across LA County, it's the easy way to get there for just $1.75 each way. Javier Becerra isn't new to the fight for progress. In Congress, he helped write and pass Obamacare. As Attorney General, he sued Trump over 120 times and won. As Secretary of Health, Becerra took on special interests and lowered drug costs. Endorsed by Planned Parenthood and nurses, Javier Becerra is the fighter we need and the leader we can trust to tackle California's affordability crisis, build more affordable housing, and stop Trump when he violates our civil rights. Ad paid for by Becerra for Governor 2026.
Let's be real. For too long, too many of our students have sat in overcrowded classrooms in underfunded public schools.
But as head of the San Diego School Board, Richard Barrera changed that.
Under Barrera's leadership, student literacy rose from the state average all the way to #1 among major urban school districts. Barrera led the way for smaller classrooms and for teachers to be paid what they're worth.
Barrera funded more counselors and mental health services, and community schools that teach real-world skills for future jobs.
A community organizer who became an education leader to fight for our kids. The only candidate for State Superintendent of Public Instruction.
Backed by the 310,000 classroom educators of the California Teachers Association. Vote Democrat Richard Barrera for State Superintendent.
Ad paid for by California Teachers Association Independent Expenditure Committee, not authorized by a candidate or committee controlled by a candidate.
Javier Becerra isn't new to the fight for progress. In Congress, he helped write and pass Obamacare. As Attorney General, he sued Trump over 120 times and won. As Secretary of Health, Becerra took on special interests and lowered drug costs. Endorsed by Planned Parenthood and nurses, Javier Becerra is the fighter we need and the leader we can trust to tackle California's affordability crisis, build more affordable housing, and stop Trump when he violates our civil rights. Ad paid for by Becerra for Governor 2026.
My name is Cynthia Mitchell. I've been an emergency room nurse in Los Angeles County for 25 years. I've been there through every fire season, every outbreak, every earthquake. Every time Los Angeles needed us, the doctors and nurses of Los Angeles County showed up. And right now, I'm seeing another disaster coming. Trump's cuts to Los Angeles County's healthcare system are a public health crisis in the making. Medi-Cal, public hospitals, disaster preparedness are all at risk, but we can stop it. Measure ER fights back against these cuts. For a half a penny, we keep emergency rooms open, care within reach for working families, and doctors and nurses serving the communities we love. When you vote yes on Measure ER, you're not just voting for healthcare, you're voting for LA. Vote yes on Measure ER by June 2nd.
Ad paid for by Yes on ER, Restore Healthcare for Angelinos, sponsored by St. John's Community Health and Health Justice Action Fund. Ad committee top funder, St. John's Community Health.
You don't talk to me like that. Don't talk to your mommy like that.
Unlike your mama, we can handle your black talk on the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire.
And we are wrapping up our conversation with Professor Christian Green about Measure ER that I feel like, Andy, we've lined up these ads just perfectly on both sides of the conversation here. So we're doing our job here. But I wanted to talk to you about how do we talk about these issues to young people? I know that part of your work is, getting young people engaged in the, political process and sort of helping them understand, right, why they are important to how we move forward, both as a professor and as an advocate, I would say. But talk to us a little bit about how you're talking to young people, to students and others about this measure, but also the importance of this election for them.
Absolutely. So I served as a youth and young adult pastor for the last 15 years. So youth and young adults, I grew up in the foster care system. So having those mentors and being able to learn and lean on different mentors paved the role in how I teach and design my classes. One is to have an open dialogue and being transparent. The second is also providing a historical context, right? So I was listening to your call earlier about, getting our youth and young adults to show up in the South, or in the sports arena, and similar to what we saw in the civil rights with SNCC, SELC, youth organizing. I was able to create this institute called the Byron Russell Institute in the Antelope Valley, teaching them how to do public comments, teaching them how to be public speakers, but also teaching them the historical lens of what our ancestors, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, my grandmother that raised me, Geraldine Cromwell, what they had to go through in the South and how they migrated over here to L.A. And understanding that concept and designing that into curriculum have helped me to really get them to understand, first of all, their power, to understand their voice, understanding that this vote really matters. For some reason, there's this myth out there that young folks don't care. Right. They could be on TikTok all day. Right. I'm just like, okay, well, create a TikTok about voting. So right now, I'm teaching them about the Black Panther Party. Over the last 2 weeks, finals is coming up right now. Yeah. We talked about the Black Panther Party, right? We're celebrating 60 years this year. And out of that, we know the 10-point plans, there was a huge health care, but out of that came community clinics, what we are fighting for with Emergency ER, right? And so right now I have them going out into South LA. It's final season, so they're researching, they're interviewing different nonprofits, different organizings, different political folks, and bringing back to the class what they've learned so that they can also teach the next generation, teach us what they've learned. So that's one way that I'm looking at it and just trying to, keeping it conversational, designing the curriculum around it. I also am, we designed this thing today. We're having a vote party, right? So bring your ballot. We're doing it in the Leimert Park tonight. So, at Soul Folks, it's Get Out the Vote weekend. So come on. Wait a minute.
I need you to say that one more time. That what it is, where it's at, and what time it is.
Absolutely. It's tonight, Friday, beautiful Friday, 6 to 9 p.m. at Soul Folks in Leimert Park. Where it's designed around folks to know about Measure ER, but also all the county measures to learn how to fill out their ballot. I'm bringing some youth that this is their first time, so I'm having them bring their ballot. So it's like a ballot party, so we can break down the measures, break down who's running. Some folks don't know about the judges, so we're going to have a nice conversation, make it communal, and it's going to be really dope. So yeah.
Let me just say that adults don't know about the judges.
Okay,
say that, this is not say kid. You just said young people. I was about to say kids, but young people get a bad rap on many things,
welcome.
Right? But there's some struggle happening in my household about what we're doing about the judges. Well, I appreciate that, and I wanted to give you some space to talk about that work, because I do think that folks often look at say things about young people that just actually are not true, and that young people are engaged. I know that my son, in fact, was at a phone bank last night, where I think you helped to organize some students to get involved and to engage in a particular race, right?
Absolutely.
And so I think it's important for us to remind folks, to let folks know if they don't, that young people are involved. They understand that there is an election here, and that you are working to help provide resources. I think it is really dope, this idea of having folks bring their ballots down, because they can be confusing, and the ballot's long. For anybody. And so I think that is a really important service that you're providing. And Andy sitting here in the booth was like, he was like, ask him one time, because Andy's about to show up with his ballot tonight.
I love that. Let's go.
At
Perfect.
Soul Folks.
One soul to the polls.
Right, exactly. So, okay, I want to. You said something earlier in the conversation that I just want to come back to. You actually answered a question that I was going to ask you before I ask it, when you were saying that it's a half cent to make sure essentially that our healthcare system stays in place. And the question that I will ask, and I'll let you talk about it a little bit more, is the concern or even the criticism, right, that folks have about even a half cent tax, right? Is it placed too much of a burden, right, on working people in LA County? Does it actually create a problem for the very people, right, that we're trying to serve? Talk a little bit about that before we close out, about that half cent temporary tax, and why it may be asking people to do a little bit more, but what it will actually mean in the long term for us.
Absolutely. I understand that everyone is struggling. I understand that rent is high, groceries, this gas is ridiculous, and so there's a lot of things that can affect us, right? But I also want to think about healthcare in general. I was able to go to Kaiser. Thank God I had a little bit of insurance to take a TB test. I got into the doctor program at Howard, so I had to go take that to do some what's it called? But I was able to go in there and leave, real quick. However, there are folks that will not have that opportunity within the 15, 20 minutes. They're going to have to wait in the ER rooms. They're going to have to wait to go visit something, And what I think about that is that for every $100 that we spend in LA County, we are contributing 50 cents to protecting health care. Out of that $100, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to go spend $100 if I go to the club tonight, excuse my language, but, if I go out to the bar, so why would I not try to contribute that to help my brother and my sister, our young folks, our seniors? I really want us to think about the why people should care. Even privately insured people, should understand that when clinics close, ER wait times increase, hospitals are overcrowded, healthcare premiums are going to rise, and, public health worsens. And I with this tax, it is set to end on October 2031. It serves as a temporary funding, come on, y'all, to keep emergency rooms, community clinics, and public health services open and accessible just over the next 5 years. This is our way of fighting back, against the regime that is in place right now.
Yeah. So I appreciate that, because that is one of the things that people will throw out, right? And I think that you are
absolutely,
precisely right, that it's not that much in the grand scheme of things, but who it is going to help, and the scope and scale of the impact is, in some ways the last line. You talked about some of these things are life and death for folks. So appreciate you bringing that. One more time on the ballot fill out party that's happening before we close.
Absolutely. It is. Sorry. It's tonight. It's tonight, 6 to 9 p.m. Vote party,
6 to 9 p.m. That's all folks in Leimert Park.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. That is fantastic. I am gonna make sure that Andy gets over there. I'm gonna make sure that I think my son may be coming by, so I'll make sure he brings.
Shout out to your son. Absolutely.
That he brings his friends with him. And again, appreciate all the work that you're doing. That's Professor Christian Green with the Yes on ER Coalition, and all the other things that he does in his spare time. When we come forward, we're going to continue this conversation about the public health crisis that we're facing with Dr. Jerry Abraham, the Director of Integration and Public Health at the Kedron Community Health Center. Stay with us.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson says he's pleased after meeting with Pope Leo XIV in Vatican City.
I was able to say that, Chicago is strong.
Johnson says the Pope's first question was, how's Chicago? The mayor also invited him to hold Mass in Grant Park next year while the two discussed slavery, immigration, war, and baseball. The Department of Homeland Security is threatening to pull federal customs officers from airports in sanctuary cities, including LAX. Secretary Markwayne Mullin says plans are being drawn up, but the idea is facing pushback. Black Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass says she doubts DHS will follow through. And Louisiana's new GOP-favored congressional map is heading to the governor's desk. Lawmakers passed the redrawn map after the Supreme Court voided the previous